Well, it finally happened. Liberal Fox News commentator Jessica Tarlov personally triggered Donald Trump himself, who mentioned Tarlov by name, even though he misspelled it, in another unhinged rant at the Fox propaganda network. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, as you know, we are the unofficial Jessica Tarlov fan club, and we are proud of it. I believe she has the hardest, toughest, most important job in legacy media, given that Fox is the biggest mainstream news network. It's important to have a competent surrogate for the Democratic Party, somebody who is, grounded in fact and then able to, persuasively and adroitly convey those facts in a hostile environment. And she is in a hostile environment, despite being outnumbered 4-1 on the 5, despite having a Fox viewership that despises her. She is so good at what she does, and they are no match for her. Well, she didn't just trigger her MAGA co-host, she triggered the king of MAGA himself, Donald Trump, who mentioned her and others by name. So, as you know, Donald Trump is profoundly insecure. He's becoming even more insecure as the weeks and the days pass. And not for the first time, he's lashing out at Fox. Fox News, of all places. Basically a propaganda arm for his Republican Party, but it's not enough. It's never enough. Because apparently Jessica Tarlov and others are employed there. Fox News spends so much time interviewing the other side that we must win despite them. So crazy. People like Fowler, Wolf, Murphy, Tarlov, and others with little or no competent pushback. They want to be fair and balanced, just like CNN, MSNBC. Conservatives want a real voice. The two news readers, AN and ES, are now terrible. So some of these people, I'm not sure who he's talking about. Fowler, I think, is Michael Fowler, who is a liberal commentator who appears. Not sure who Murphy is. Jessica Tarlov, he butchers her name. Tarlov is her name. These are people that he's calling out specifically. He's also gone after Neil Cavuto, of course, on Fox Business. But he's so upset that Fox will occasionally have on people who will push back on the MAGA narrative. Never mind the fact, again, I bring this up, but never mind the fact that Fox had to pay nearly $800 million, the largest recorded defamation settlement in American history, certainly by a news network, $787 million, because the evidence was sufficient, such that they would probably have lost a defamation trial, that they were signal boosting Donald Trump's lies about the 2020 election. They are so loyal to this. Fox is more loyal to Donald Trump than any news outfit has ever been to a particular presidential candidate. CNN, MSNBC, Newsmax, OAN, because Fox did $800 million worth of defaming of Dominion voting system as they knowingly signal boosted Donald Trump's lies about a stolen election. It's just not enough for him. If you deviate at all, if you have even a voice of dissent, even though it's wildly, staggeringly outnumbered, it's not enough. You're disloyal. We have to win despite them. Buddy, if you win this election, and you may very well, tragically, sadly, it will be in part because of what Fox News has done for you. Once again, proving that Donald Trump is just disloyal to those loyal to him. Loyalty only runs one way, you to him, and it must be absolute and unending. Don't you ever criticize. Don't you ever disagree. Don't you ever dissent. What it comes down to is Donald Trump is censorious. He's the leader of the so-called free speech party, the party of personal expression. But Donald Trump has greater instincts for censorship and punishment than any presidential candidate we have ever seen. Republican politicians have been formally censured by their own party for defying him. Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger. Liz Cheney, a lifelong conservative Republican who voted with Donald Trump 93% of the time when he was president. It's not enough because you didn't follow his election lies. Formally censured. Rusty Bowers, the former Speaker of the Republican Arizona House of Representatives, he was formally censured. Others as well. It's never enough. Donald Trump's instincts for censorship go beyond what we just saw. Yes, he's clearly triggered by Jessica Tarlov, as well he should, and he should fear her in terms of her command of the facts, her ability to crush his surrogates on Fox News like Jesse Waters and Greg Gutfeld and Jeanine Pirro and yes, even Dana Perino. He should be terrified of this woman for her competence, her command of the truth. But it goes beyond Fox. right? This is not the first nor the last time he will lash out at Fox. He's also been publicly calling for censorship of CBS and 60 Minutes, perhaps the most legendary, perhaps the most reputable of all the major news programs in American history. And I want to play you some clips in which the censorious anti-First Amendment Donald Trump is calling for the government to lash out and punish his political enemies that he believes exist in the media.
So they're asking, but think of this. So CBS gets a license, and the license is based on honesty. I think they have to take their license away. I do.
So again, he thinks that CBS should have their license taken away, that they should be taken off the air by the federal government because he thinks they're insufficiently honest. Buddy, if that were the case, then Fox News, again, by definition, they would be first on the proverbial chopping block. And imagine, by the way, I say this before, I'll say it again. We have to impose the same standards on people. We have to say, listen, whatever standard you want for Democrats, you're obligated to adhere to that standard as well. We may disagree on what the standard should be, but at the very least, you should be consistent. So I don't think, for example, that the government should take news networks off the air. But if that is your standard, and if the standard is you have to be honest, and if you're not honest, you get to be taken off the air by the government, then President Biden should have come out a year ago and said, we're going to be taking action against Fox News. They just had to pay nearly $800 million in a defamation settlement, signal boosting Donald Trump's lies. They are clearly not to be trusted. The government should punish them. The Daily Wire, Tim Pool, Steven Crowder, right-wing media, OAN, Newsmax. But Biden hasn't done that because Biden is infinitely more supportive of the First Amendment and freedom of speech and expression than Donald Trump is, was, and ever shall be. Trump is inferior, objectively, to every Democrat alive in this respect. And he's still calling for the censorship of 60 Minutes and CBS.
60 Minutes should be taken off the air for what they've done.
What did they do? And his crowd, listen, his crowd, it's bad enough that this unhinged lunatic is publicly calling for it, but his crowd of cultists are cheering. Imagine how they would react, again, if Biden said that about Fox News. They'd be flipping out. No, only liberal media can be censored. These hypocrites, these unprincipled losers. Speaking of unprincipled losers, you actually have MAGA Republican politicians also supporting Donald Trump's calls for government censorship of media that is hostile to Trump.
It's nonsense. Here's what needs to happen. It's not a former president who necessarily needs to call for this. Ordinary citizens need to file complaints with the FCC and local stations. They have to take that serious. Under the 1934's Communications Act of America, these stations and networks are to operate as broadcast entities in the public interest. It is not in the public interest to try to sway election by selective editing that changes the focus, the tenor, and basically what Kamala Harris said.
So that's a MAGA Republican congressman, Mark Alford, publicly calling for governments to punish CBS and 60 Minutes or the news for trying to sway elections. Well, again, note that he is saying this on Fox. He said this on Fox. Sir, by that standard that you're trying to impose on CBS and 60 Minutes because you think they selectively edited an answer from Kamala Harris, and we'll get to that. By that definition, you wouldn't be able to say that on Fox because Fox would be shut down because they have acted far more egregiously with respect to dishonesty and influencing elections than CNN, MSNBC, CBS, ABC, any other network. For her part, the FCC chair talked about this. She addressed this, quote, while repeated attacks against broadcast stations by the former president may now be familiar, these threats against free speech are serious and should not be ignored. And she's obviously not going to punish CBS, nor should she. But if Donald Trump takes the White House, if Donald Trump takes the Senate, if they implement their Project 2025 agenda, and the FCC and the SEC and the FTC and all these semi-independent agencies become under the direct control, the direct aegis of the President of the United States, then that is precisely what a MAGA administration will do. Their censorious instincts are far greater than the Democratic Party writ large. Yes, you can find Twitter randos calling for, we should outlaw Newsmax, OAN, Fox News. But these people don't wield state power. The Democratic Party, its politicians, are not trying to impose the government on Fox News the way that MAGA Republicans want to impose the government on CBS. And on that note, because again, what Donald Trump and MAGA Republicans are saying is like, 60 Minutes edited an answer from Vice President Harris. Well, they didn't, right? They actually released a clip of the full unedited answer. And then for concision, as 60 Minutes has always done, including with Trump, when they used to interview Trump, then they release an edited version, but it's not edited in the sense where, things are concealed. The only reason that we know that there was a difference, that there was a full unabridged answer, and the answer that was released as part of the official release, was because 60 Minutes was the one who released the footage in the first place. If they were trying to, sane wash Kamala Harris, if they were trying to cover for Kamala Harris, you'd have never known because they never would have released the footage in the first place. This conspiracy theory doesn't make sense. It's not even internally consistent. And moreover, it defies what not just 60 Minutes does, but Fox has done as well. And so I think it's Kobe Hall talked about this on News Nation when asked, well, doesn't Donald Trump have a point here about so-called edited answers? Spoiler alert, he doesn't.
Don't you think he's justified in being upset about that?
Well, he is, but he should be careful because it's a bit of a slippery slope. He's done dozens of taped interviews with Fox News, all of which have also been edited down for concision, right? For time. That's just what, I'm a former TV producer. As long as it's journalistically sound and the same answer is pure, then that's fine. So if in fact they expect 60 Minutes to release the unaired video footage and transcript, then it also, you could sort of argue that, his long sort of rambly answers to Sean Hannity should be released. So
exactly. And to say nothing of what 60 Minutes has done for Trump. Trump won't sit down for an interview with 60 Minutes in this election cycle because he's terrified of an adversarial interview. But in the past, when Trump was interviewed, as Fox has done another, they have done these sorts of things where they, for concision, for time, concisely edit and give an abridged answer. They do this with everyone. And again, the only reason you know about it here is because CBS released the unabridged footage. It's the only way you have a point of comparison from the abridged version to the unabridged. This is insane. It's just insane. It's hypocritical. It's internally inconsistent. And again, it just emphasizes that at the end of the day, all Trump cares about is censoring and punishing, using state power if necessary, anyone whom he perceives as insufficiently loyal. Who knows? If he becomes president again, maybe he'd be willing to target Fox and he would have the power to do it. So anyway, I just thought it's interesting. Donald Trump's censorious, desperate, panicked, insecure instincts, the fact that he is so personally triggered by Jessica Tarlov directly, and he's so upset that Fox would dare to have just a few dissenting voices. Really unhinged stuff. Funny, but also very serious because this man is a coin flip away from becoming president again. And maybe that should factor into our decisions when we go to the ballot box in November. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.